Yo, what's up guys? This is Kisune101 from PlusEVPokerStrategy.com. A few days ago I wrote an article about how to value bet teen. To talk about some pretty basic stuff of what is the teen value bet, why you should value bet, when not to value bet, and when is a good time to value bet teen. I talk about opponent tendencies, bet sizing, polarized board texture. A polarized board texture is like a monotone or 4 flush board or 4 straight board. Talk about balance. I talk about dynamics. Basically, value betting teen is still value bet and it's still plus EV every time you value bet, and it does make you a tougher player, of course, assuming that your villain cannot rebluff you by reshoving you, or he just does not do that. If he does that, then it does make it more complicated. So it's very villain dependent. And today I'm going to make a video of 5 hand history that I deem as a teen value bet. Always keep in mind, a teen value bet always involves your perceived range and the board texture. Like, in a monotone board, top pair top kicker might not be very strong, but on a dry board, top pair top kicker is like really strong, and it's always a value bet. Let's go into the first hand. I 3-bet king ace in position. Villain is somewhat passive regular, I would say. Does not bluff too much, tends to call more than bluff in my opinion. So when he calls it, he have a pretty depolarized strong range, like king queen suited, jacks, 9s, 10s. He might even have queens. That's my initial assumption. I have top pair top kicker, I see bet, he calls, he checks, I bet, he calls. The river brings a 4 straight. So what a lot of people think is that if I bet this river, I'm very polarized, but that's not actually true. Especially on a 3-bet pot, you can actually value bet thinner because your pot to stack size ratio is much smaller. And another very important thing when you go to value bet thin in these spots is basically ask yourself what villain can have. Like how often does villain have me beat here? Of course, sure, he might have pocket 9s, but I think like he does check shove pocket 9s a decent percentage of the time, or he might have pocket 8s, but there's like really just like what, 2 combos of pocket 8s. Sorry, I mean 3 combos of pocket 8s, and nothing really else beats me except like some slow play pocket kings or pocket aces. He could have king queen, he could have king jack suited. I don't think he has pocket 7s or pocket 5, with just 100 big blind deep. I don't think he actually calls with that out of position. And even if he does, he might check raise the turn a decent percentage of the time too. So I decided to shove here, hoping to get called by a worse king. I think he, at this time, probably 4 pocket queens, I'm not too sure. Or he might fall in the trap to think that I'm polarized and call with pocket queens. But I certainly do not need to be polarized here. And he calls, but of course, unfortunately, in this hand, he had pocket kings, but I still think it's a pretty good shove based on the fact that I think that he just does not have me beat often enough for me to track this hand back. The second hand is a bit different. It's blind versus blind, and I'm against a pretty weak fish that calls too much. Top pair top kicker versus a player like this is like almost the nuts. The 10 turns, he might have a 10, but it does not really matter. He could call with a 5, could call with a 3, he still could call with ace high. He could have floated the flop with king queen or jack queen and call the turn, so I definitely bet the turn. And the real, I can decide to check, call, check, fold, or I can just bet for value myself. And I decided there's enough hands in his range to call, so I decided to bet like 40. There's a few things to take away from this hand. One is my bet sizing. I decided to bet a bit smaller because he's a fish, so you can actually change your bet sizing to get your desired outcome. Versus a good player, if you do some retarded bet of betting too small, he might shove over you, so it's not too good of an idea. But versus a player like this, I think he will not take advantage of my small bet sizing. So I bet 40, I'm pretty sure he'll call me with worse 9s, worse pocket pairs like 8s below, a 5, a 3, or 4. yeah, that's about it. And you know, there will be some better hands like a better 9 or some random 10 he can have, but besides that, no, I don't think he can ever have me beat. I think he does re-raise like kings, aces, and queens, you know, even jacks pre-flop. He calls, and it should be ace high, so you know it works pretty well for me. No idea what he's doing, but then again, he's a fish. Quickly going to the third hand. Cutoff versus small blind. The small blind is just a normal regular. He checks. With second pair, second kicker, I think, you know, I can bet this. You know, he will check call with like some guide shots, you know, worst tens, you know, and he will have a decent amount of queens in his range, depending whether he raise 3 bets like king queen or ace queen, which I'm not too sure at this point. But I think it's easier just to, you know, just to see bet it. And a turn brings a 5. He checks. And I check behind because I think like a lot of his guide shots actually just folds the turn because the board pair. That's one of the big reasons. He could have a 5 too, and the queen. So if I bet this turn, I think, you know, his hand equity actually dominates mine. The river is a blind, and he checks again. You know, I realize a lot of people check behind this river for whatever reason. They might scared that they will get check raise or whatever, but you know, in truth, I think he bets a queen almost ever, and sorry, almost every single time. And if he bets a queen every single time, he should really be betting ace 10 also, you know. And if he check raises here, he usually have like a really strong hand like a 5 that's slow playing, but it still does not make sense for him to check raise here because my range is pretty weak when I check behind the turn, and I might not even bet here. So what I'm trying to say is that he will have a medium strength hand more often than not, like 90+% of the time, that your hand is actually beating, you know, except, you know, maybe ace 10, but I do think he bets ace 10 some percentage of the time, or at least most regulars will bet ace 10. So I decided to bet here for tin value, and he calls the pocket 8s. The forehand is another blind hand versus a regular, I think a more aggressive one. But it's a very dry high board, and he check calls, you know, which is weird. At this point, you know, there's like no way I think my hand is bad, and my hand is always good here. I turn the flush draw and still top pair second kicker, and obviously I will bet. He calls again. He might have a like really bad king, or like, you know, pocket, I don't know, like pocket 8s to pocket queens he might be doing this with. He might have 7x, but I think he actually bets 7x. So the river brings a 4 straight, you know, so this is something like the first sign of 4 straight on board. But I think I'm just so good, sorry, I'm just good here too often not to bet. And once again, you know, the difference between this hand and the first hand is that the first hand is a 3-bet pot, and this is a single raise pot. So when I bet the river, I think a lot of regulars will actually think your polarized is 6 or nothing, you know, maybe a set at best. No, sorry, at worst you have a set. You know, they won't expect you to bet a king here, and he calls with like pocket 10s, you know, exactly the outcome I want. The last hand, I'm going to show I have pocket jacks. I see bet this, and he calls here as pretty standard, a queen turn, and now I don't have an overpay anymore. I bet, and he calls. The river brings a 7. As you think about it, it's not that interesting this hand, but I decide to bet the river for tin value. And I did it for a few reasons. I think the board run out is really dry, and it's a pretty good spot to bluff in the sense that you always put your opponent in a red tough position for his whole range of, you know, pocket 4s to pocket jacks himself. Of course, I think the higher pocket pairs will always call, and you know, I have jacks, which is right below queen, and he will have some random queen ace or queen X suited. That's what I mean, like queen X of diamonds in this case, that will obviously call me. But besides that, I think I have like a lot of small pocket pairs that will actually call me, and that's one reason. And the second reason is purely for balance, because I want to be able to bluff this river enough. Actually, I do bluff this river enough to try to balance it with like a middle pocket pair. And he calls me, but to my surprise, he have like pocket fours, which is like, I personally think it's just too loose to call with pocket fours in this situation. You know, I could be bluffing you and still beat you. You know. But interesting fact that if he calls with pocket fours, he will probably be calling with something like 7-8 of diamonds or 7-8 of diamonds, 7-6 of diamonds. He probably will call that too. So this is actually a pretty good tin value bet. Yeah, so that's it for tin value bets. Just to recap what I talk about in this short video session. You know, I talk about bet sizing. You know, I talk about polarized spot texture when opponent will, you know, give you, you know, your perceived range will be the nuts or nothing, which is not true. You can always value bet much lighter and they will actually call you much lighter. And I talk about just being balanced. If you're going to bluff a lot in that particular spot when overcut come, you have to balance it with medium strength hands too. Yeah, so if you want more poker strategy content, please visit www.plus8pokerstrategy.com. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook. I know as you can see in the screen. Please do share this content, you know, on Twitter and Facebook with your friends too. And once again, thank you for watching.